Yes, yes, yes.
You're on.
I'm on. Sweet. I sound good? You guys sound good.
Go for it.
Okay. I am drawing a blank on the
It's your show.
script. Hold on.
We're
Okay, I'm
wasting
just going to
tape.
try and see how it goes.
All right, we're going to be quiet and wait for you.
Okay.
It's your show.
Hello, and welcome to the Escape Podcast, your source for all good things in the universe for movies. I'm David.
You're going back to the old school script, huh?
That's
fine. I don't have a problem.
What?
That's fine.
No, that's good. It's fine.
No, what would you guys like me to say in the
Whatever you want. Whatever you want. I'm Josh. That's my name.
I'm Brandon. That's also my name.
All right, should we try it again?
Yes.
Only if you want to.
All right, let's try again. Take two.
All right.
All right.
Hello, and welcome to the Escape Podcast, your source for all good things in the universe of movies. I'm David.
I'm Josh.
I'm Brandon.
What's up, fellas?
All right, what are we doing today, Dave?
We are talking about the X-Men and all the various iterations of the franchise. From movies to video games to comics to animated series to toys, I guess, maybe even. Whatever else we can think of. Yeah. I've got quite a lot on my mind regarding the topic. So,
all right, where did you want to start?
Well, let's see. How about in general? I'm thinking X-Men as a whole. So they always kind of try to reach out. I think they try to market the X-Men to people in society that feel obviously cast out and shunned, that sort of thing. Would you guys agree?
I've heard that later. I didn't really know much about the X-Men, to be honest.
Okay. Well, there are some very interesting things about its history. For example, Wolverine started off as a character that showed up in a Hulk comic book years prior to the actual X-Men comics. He
fought Hulk Hogan?
The Hulk.
The Hulkster.
The Hulkster, brother. Yeah, so that I thought that was interesting. And then his costume in that comic really kind of resembled the 90s animated series version, so that to me tells me that they did like a throwback, because it obviously changed a lot over the years. And I think for a while he had some kind of strange brown and tan and yellow color scheme, and so they kind of went back and forth with the Wolverine aesthetic. But yeah, and then they even kind of make a joke about that for a quick little reference in the first X-Men movie, where they're talking about something about yellow spandex, if you guys remember that.
Don't they also have it in the second Wolverine movie where like he opens up a suitcase and there's the yellow suit in there?
Yeah, so that was a deleted scene, I believe. But they didn't actually ever, show it beyond that, as far as I'm aware. So.
Well, where did you start with X-Men? Like, were you a comic book reader? Did you start with the cartoon?
Well, actually, my first exposure to the X-Men world came from when I was, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8, and my family would go to the local shopping mall called Southland. And back then, Southland Mall had a arcade. And in the arcade, they had right at the front door an X-Men arcade game. And you saw all the main X-Men characters just animated and displayed all around the base of the game. And I can't remember if it was actually exclusively an X-Men game, or if it was X-Men and Avengers, or if it was some kind of Marvel.
Was it like that big fighter? It was like an extra big arcade that was like a double screen.
I I don't remember.
And you kind of had to look down into it.
It was the arcade that was down. I don't know if you remember this, but it was the arcade that was down the hall from what is now known as Hot Topic. It was down the hall from Hot Topic. But
Yeah, there used to be an arcade there called Tilts and Tumbles. I
well,
remember
that
a
was
few.
a completely different side of the mall. As Tilts and Tumbles is different. I'm talking about an arcade that was prior to Tilts and Tumbles. It was down.
I remember a few different arcade games. I was just trying to figure out which one it was.
Yeah. So there was an arcade that was in a different area of the mall down by Hot Topic. But anyway, they took it down, and then a couple years later, I think they put up Tilts and Tumbles. And yeah, so but in the original arcade, they had this X-Men game, and I would always go in there with my brothers, and we would play it, and I would always choose Cyclops because I thought he was the coolest. And I don't know if it was just because it was a guy wearing blue who shot lasers out of his eyes, and that was familiar to me because of Superman. But anyway.
I thought you were going to say because that's what you do.
Yes. It's so relatable because I can't open my eyes ever without ruby quartz lenses in front of me. No, but yeah, so we would play that game, and I just thought it was the coolest. And so I wanted to know more about it, and so then I started picking up little X-Men comic books here and there. Well, I guess they weren't actually comic books. They were like kids' books from the bookstore at the mall. And they were just like, like for kids in the age range of where I was, like 5 to 10-year-olds. So something like that. And so I had a few of those, but then 1993 rolled around, and that is when, or maybe it was 92 or 93 was when the animated series started on Saturday mornings on Fox Kids. And so that was like the highlight of my Saturday morning, because there was, I think there was a kind of a lull between through the early 90s and the mid 90s, or maybe the late 80s even, where there was all these really cool Saturday morning cartoons on. And there were things like Mario Brothers, Pee-wee's Playhouse, all these other shows that kind of stopped by the mid 90s or by the early 90s. But then X-Men came on Saturday morning, and that was what got me sucked right back into being really hyped up about Saturday morning cartoons. And I remember it came on every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. And so I got so heavily into it. And it was something like even my brothers and I, for those of you out there listening, I have one older brother and one younger brother. So I'm a mid kid. But we would always come together and watch this show. Like we had no other important things to do in life except pay attention to this show. And it was kind of interesting because the series was itself was serialized. If you didn't really watch each episode, there would be a lot of things that you would not be like, you wouldn't know what was going on if you missed an episode. So we would make sure we never missed an episode. And I remember the very first episode that aired, and there was a character called Morph, and he's a shapeshifter, and he was one of the X-Men, but in the pilot episode of the animated series, spoiler alert, he was killed, or at least presumed killed. And I remember just being distraught emotionally about this. And I think it was even probably the first time that I ever invested into a character on my television screen to the point of being really concerned about what was happening. Even when the show was off, like I would think about it. So, yeah. And so the animated series kind of took over our Saturdays. And I remember there would even be times when, like, one of the big family traditions growing up, my dad would always take us out, at least, if not every Saturday, then every other Saturday morning for breakfast somewhere, Bob Evans or whatever. So if there was going to be a chance that I knew I was going to miss it that day, I would always make sure I set up the VCR with a blank tape and set the timer to record it so that when we got back, we could watch it. And that was intense for us because we had, like I said, my brothers and I, my brothers and I were actually so into it that we started kind of like a X-Men. I don't know. I guess it was just like an X-Men club, like pretend club thing that we started in our backyard. And of course, I've always been a Cyclops guy. He's my favorite. So I made like a cardboard visor, and like I colored it yellow, and I taped it on my head, and I had like a piece of like a piece of red.
I'm picturing you running around with like duct tape hanging off your face and.
Well, it's yeah, pretty close. Yeah, I had like the red cellophane stuck to it in the middle, and I cut it out, and I was really crafty about the whole thing, and it looked pretty cool. I think I even tried to wear it to school a few times, and that didn't go over well. But I would put this thing on, and I would go in the backyard, and my younger brother, he was the Wolverine. He was the self-appointed Wolverine. He was really into Wolverine, so he had these cardboard claws that he taped to the ends of his hands, and so he would be Wolverine, I would be Cyclops. And then my older brother, he was really into Gambit, and so also he collected baseball cards. So he took I don't know, it was like maybe 10 baseball cards, and he would stack them together so that they would be a nice thick thing, and he would tape it together. And it was something that if he threw it across the yard like Gambit throwing his cards, if you got hit, it would hurt. And so we would probably be out there for hours just pelting each other with baseball cards and attacking each other and pretending to optic blast each other. And so yeah, that was what we would do. And
Did you collect comic books?
What's that?
Did you collect comic books?
So I'm sorry. Hold on a second. My note just disappeared. Hold on. Technical difficulties. I'm snapping to make pops so you can see it. Okay. So we would play that kind of stuff in the backyard, and sometimes it would end well. Most of the time we ended with at least 2 or 3 cuts and bruises. I remember one time my brother kind of caused Matthew, my older brother Daniel would cause my younger brother Matthew to kind of fall backwards down the slide. At least once or twice that happened. I clearly remember that, and he was very upset because it looked like it hurt real bad. So somehow we got away with that, and it was just X-Men was our life. It was the coolest thing to us. So
did you get comic books and toys too, or was it mostly just the arcade game and the cartoon?
Well, that's what it led to. I guess the cartoon, I guess the arcade game was like my gateway drug to X-Men, and then it led to the cartoon. It led to other stuff, and so the cartoon led to comic books for me, and I started going looking for comic books, and at this point I had already collected some comic books from other superheroes and stuff. Like my very first comic book ever was the Superman Back from the Dead issue, where you see a picture of him flying down out of the clouds and he's reaching his hand down on the cover. So that was the first comic book I ever owned. Still got it here on my shelf. But the first X-Men comic book I ever got was I don't remember the year it came out, but I got it. I actually won it when I was playing some art. Again, it was at the mall, except this time it was at Tilts and Tumbles, and they had this thing where if you had enough tickets or points or something, you could get a comic book as one of the prizes. So that was what I got, and also got a handful of other comic books in the same evening. I remember it was like a Spider-Man comic book and a few other things. So that was cool. And then so I really started getting into the toys as well, and I feel like the toys are almost more of a cult classic from the franchise than anything else, because I go to a lot of antique stores, and sometimes I'll see the toys in there, and they're like more expensively priced than any other toys in the antique store like today. So I don't know what that's all about, but I still have my Cyclops action figure, and the batteries which lit up his red visor optic blast thing just recently died, and they had obviously been in there since the early 90s. But like they were still working up till very recently, just a few weeks ago. So
That's amazing. Josh, you weren't really as much into the X-Men, were you? You didn't watch the cartoon and stuff. I remember you saying that in our our special episode on cartoons.
No, not too much. I very rarely watched it.
So you're mostly then a movie guy? Because you didn't get comic books either, did you?
No, I didn't. I mean, I watched a little bit of the cartoon here and there, but it never grabbed me like a lot of other kids.
okay, yeah, and so one of the things that I think the cartoon led to was the Sega Genesis game. Did you ever play that?
Yeah, I used to play that at my cousin's house all the time. When I was growing up, I would get comic books every now and then, and X-Men was one of them. I'd get mostly, I think, Spider-Man and X-Men were the two that I liked the best. But every now and then I'd get like Hulk or Ghost Rider.
Okay.
The cartoon was huge. I remember that being like the biggest thing on Saturday mornings
Oh my gosh.
around that time period.
Yeah, definitely. And what's funny, side note, Disney Plus has been there have been some rumors going around since they've got the show on Disney Plus now, as well as a handful of movies. Since Disney ended the Fox label, the Fox brand, there's been rumors that they're trying to talk about doing like a new season of the original animated series with the original voice actors and everything coming back. So that would be sweet.
It sounds like that's pretty much a confirmed thing now, or close to it. That cartoon is pretty crazy.
Yeah, they're doing that with Animaniacs. That was recently confirmed. They're doing a new season of that, but I hadn't heard if it was confirmed for X-Men.
Like you're saying with the Morph thing, killing off a character, right? I think they created Morph for the cartoon just so they could kill him off.
Yeah, I believe that is true. They brought him back because he was presumed dead in the pilot, and then the Mr. Sinister episode where he kind of messed up Scott and Jean Grey's wedding. Morph was involved with that, and he was like, I don't know, evil somehow. I don't remember if it was some kind of mind control.
If I remember right, I think they brought him into the comics, kind of like Harley Quinn with Batman.
Exactly.
Cartoon.
Yeah.
I remember watching something about like the creators of the cartoon saying that they wanted an adult show, even though it was going to be a cartoon and kids would be watching it. They wanted like adult themes and it to be like heavier, kind of like Batman was a little bit back in the day too. And it really comes off. If you go back and watch it, like the animation isn't exactly the best and some parts are a little cheesy, but I loved that cartoon. Right. I remember, Wolverine was like everybody's favorite. I ended up liking Gambit, I think, the best, but that was because he was charming and mysterious.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different.
That's a good point that you bring up the Batman animated series because there are a lot of similarities, I think.
There were the two of the best cartoons on at their time.
I agree. And they're both on Fox Kids. But, and then eventually, after the third season of the Batman animated series, Batman went to Saturday mornings for the fourth season. And then so I don't remember it by that point. I think X-Men actually, that might have been what happened. I think X-Men ended and then Saturday mornings needed something to replace it. So they put Batman on Saturday mornings for its fourth season, which, by the way, isn't as good as the first three, in my opinion. But anyway, back to X-Men. And back to what I mentioned earlier about the Sega Genesis game. Good golly, that thing, in my opinion, might be one of the best Sega games I've ever played. Like, I still love playing that game. And even as a Cyclops fan, I remember as a kid, I would always try to use Cyclops for every level. But it wasn't until much later in my life when I realized, wait a second. The option that they give you to play as other characters is actually on purpose. They want you... Certain characters are designed to do better on certain levels than other characters. So that was something that I thought was interesting. Like I'd always... I found out that in the first level where you're like jumping from through the tree limbs and trying to get through the waterfall and all that in the first Sega game. If you choose Wolverine, that will be immensely better for you to get through it without any issues than if you were to choose, one of the other characters. So
yeah, I played both those Sega games a lot, and there were some Nintendo games too that weren't all that great, but I would rent them from time to time.
yeah.
I remember
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I had a friend that lived around a couple streets down, and he had a big poster with the X-Men on it, and I would always just stare at it thinking it was the coolest thing. That was before I knew too much about the X-Men, and I believe it was the Uncanny lineup, which was popular in I think the 80s?
I believe so. I'm not exactly sure. One thing I will say, too, as far as the games go, I believe there was a sequel, maybe even 2 sequels. There was a part 2 and a part 3 for the games in Sega, for the Sega Genesis line of X-Men games. I never had them. I never played them. I didn't play them till much later in life, but I only ever had the first one, and that was the one that still means a lot to me. So, so this leads me to my next point, which is I can clearly recall a conversation with my brothers. We were out on a road trip, somewhere out west. I think we were in Montana at this point or something like that. And we were just, we were just going around seeing the sights and doing the whole tourist thing. But there was I remember clearly, we had a conversation about what would happen, who would be the best choice if they ever made a live action X-Men movie. And I remember we were going through different characters, like there's this guy, there's that guy. This actor might be better, this other actress might be better. But I remember clearly we established that, dude, you know who should play Professor Xavier? The guy from that Star Trek show. And at the time, I wasn't a Star Trek fan, but I knew it because my dad is a huge Star Trek fan, and he would always watch it. Every time that it was on, he would watch it. And so I knew there was this bald guy on a Star Trek show, and he just looked like he would fit the description for the perfect live action Professor.
Lieutenant Broccoli?
Lieutenant Broccoli. Yeah, that's it. Sure. So I remember that because that was 1994 or somewhere in there. And then, 6 years later, the first X-Men movie came out in 2000. And lo and behold, there was Captain Xavier on the screen. So, but yeah, I remember the end of the 90s was a strange time for comic book movies because we just got off the strangest roller coaster ride ever with the Batman movies and the Batman and Robin, sign off of the Batman franchise. And, there were rumors of the Tim Burton. I remember following the rumors on the internet about the Nicolas Cage, Tim Burton Superman movie. They were trying to get going, but it never took off. So, yeah, it was a weird time. And then I remember being in high school one day. I was in school with Josh. Josh, you may remember this. We had a math class together, and I was in a computer class prior to the math class, and I was browsing the internet, and I came across this thing about X-Men behind the scenes filming pictures, and I had heard they were trying to get an X-Men movie started, but I wasn't aware that they had already started filming it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is exciting. So I found these behind the scenes pictures of them filming and doing makeup tests and stuff, and I printed a few pictures off in my computer lab class, and I brought them to my math class where I knew Josh would be. And I was like, dude, check these pictures out. And it was I remember specifically there was a picture of James Marsden behind the scenes getting some kind of makeup test and getting fitted for his visor, getting fitted for I don't know, the best type of visor, the style of it. And there was a few different types that they tried, I believe. And so I remember showing that to Josh and being like, dude, it's the X-Men movie. It's Cyclops. I'm so excited. But even then he was like, yeah, I'm not really into it. So. Hello.
All right. Yeah, those X-Men movies, the first two I thought were pretty good. I never thought about who could be in an X-Men movie like that before, but anytime I think back to like that first one, I've never really been super happy with any version of Sabretooth that they've done.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's true.
the as far as just looks go, maybe not acting ability.
Hello.
But do you remember a professional wrestler called Psycho Sid? Or Sid Vicious?
Yeah, I didn't really follow wrestling very much at all back then.
All right, if you ever get a chance, just Google that guy, Psycho Sid, Sid Vicious, Sid Justice, whoever from wrestling, and tell me that is not Sabretooth brought to life.
Okay,
he looks exactly like him.
The actor they got for the first X-Men movie, wasn't he a wrestler?
Yeah, but they put all that weird makeup on him. He looked weird. He looked better than the one in the Wolverine movie. But he acted real calm and tame, and that's like the opposite of Sabretooth.
Brandon, I think you might be having some connection problems because you were really cutting in and out pretty bad, and I missed a lot of what you just said in your last sentence. So,
can you hear me now?
Yes.
What was the last thing you
heard? You said something about his makeup looking bad, and then something happened, and you cut out.
Yeah, in that first movie, the makeup didn't really look right. He was a big guy, but he wasn't ferocious. He was real calm. I remember that scene where he grabbed Storm and said, "Scream for me," and he's like whispering in her ear.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not Sabretooth at all. He's supposed to be a ferocious animal.
Yeah, exactly. He's really kind of quiet vocally, and I thought that I thought that it was just a little underwhelming compared to what Sabretooth should have actually been. So, especially like compared to what he was in the animated series. But that first X-Men movie really brought, I guess, an amount of respect back to the world of comic book movies, because Batman and Robin was so goofy, and Batman Forever before it was not as goofy, but still pretty goofy. And I think us comic book fans, we were just like, man, this isn't cool. So when that first X-Men movie came out, it was like, there it is.
What about Blade?
Comic book movie. What's that?
What about Blade?
Blade, yes. I mean, that's a good point. Blade was also a serious comic book movie, but maybe a little too dark for... I think what comic book fans wanted was just a comic book movie set in a relatable reality. And I think X-Men, the first X-Men movie and the second one really pulled that off perfectly. They wanted characters based on their comic book source material, but in a relatable world that we live in, So based in as much reality as possible. So that first X-Men movie came out 2000, and then 2002 brought us the first Spider-Man movie. So that was like another huge success in the world of comic book movies. It was a little campier than the X-Men movies, obviously, but still, it was this thing where they had comic book characters in a live action movie that, wasn't goofy and wasn't filled with neon lights and, over the top acting and, all that stuff. Spider-Man, obviously, a little bit more so than X-Men, because X-Men is obviously a slightly darker film, but I think that it was just refreshing after what had just finished up in the 90s with the Batman movies. And so X2, great sequel. It was a great way to follow up from the first movie. And my only complaint with those first two X-Men movies, and obviously subsequent movies, I think they're so overly Wolverine centric, and they did kind of just feel like Wolverine and the X-Men is what the title should have been. Wolverine and the X-Men Part 2. Wolverine and the X-Men Part 3. Maybe that should have been what they called them, because they were just so centered around Logan and his story and his character development and all that stuff. So X2 obviously left us on a huge cliffhanger with comic book fans knew what was happening. They knew at the end what that bird-shaped thing was rising out of the water. Obviously it's a phoenix from Jean Grey. So, but it left us on a as a cliffhanger. Like, what the heck? They just killed Jean Grey at the end of X2, and it was just kind of a weird note to leave us on. And then, they were talking about doing a third one, and that was when they were also talking about doing Superman Returns, a new Superman movie. First time they had a Superman movie since 1987. So it's like almost 20 years had passed since the previous Superman movie. It was a big deal. So Bryan Singer, director of the first two X-Men movies, left the X-Men director's chair to go over to do Superman Returns. But instead, that gave us a really horrible third X-Men movie. The director, McG, I don't even know what else he's done, or if he's even done much since then, since 2006, when the third movie came out. But there were just a lot of strange things about it that...
McG?
Yeah, McG.
He directed the third one?
Yeah, McG directed the third one.
Are you sure? I don't think it was him.
What?
I don't think it was McG.
Are you sure it wasn't?
Because McG did Terminator and Charlie's Angels. I don't think he did X-Men 3. I think that was a different guy.
Am I completely mistaken here? Oh, no. I was completely mistaken. Who directed X3? Now I gotta look it up.
Brett Ratner.
Brett Ratner. There it is. What was I thinking with McG? I don't know what I was thinking there. Brain fart. Huge brain fart. Well, anyway. How should we do this? So, okay, maybe we can edit that whole part out where I'm talking about McG.
No, that's strike one.
What?
3 strikes, you're out, buddy.
Okay. Okay, so...
We're not going to X anything out of the X-Men discussion.
That's funny. Okay, so I'm just going to try to pick it up here with X3 and say the right director this time. So then X3 comes along in 2006, and we got director Brett Ratner, who has replaced Bryan Singer because he left to do Superman Returns. And as a result, we ended up with some things that were very inconsistent with the first two X-Men movies. And it was just, in general, a really bad third installment. There were some cool things about it, I think. Like, the casting of Ellen Page as... Oh, wait, no, I think she was already in the second one. But she was cool, I thought, in the Kitty Pryde role. And the whole story... I thought the basic storyline about them, having a cure and about them trying to force it on mutants and some mutants who would volunteer and getting... I thought it was an interesting storyline, but overall it was only like, I don't know, it was really short. Like, I think it was like an hour and a half long, something like that. The de-aging process on Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart was not the greatest. I think it was in the infancy of movie actor de-aging. So, but I saw what they were trying to do. I think maybe even Bryan Singer might have had some input, I would assume, on it. But interestingly enough, as a Cyclops fan, they killed Cyclops along with a bunch of other characters in the third one, and I was not happy about that. The actor James Marsden actually was in Superman Returns, and his role in the third one would be so small that I think I read somewhere that they said he just came on and he offered to play the role of Cyclops in the third one for free. I don't think he was paid. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. He came on there and just played the role for free because he wanted to be in it, and somehow still made it work with his shooting schedule with Superman, because both movies came out around the same time, summer 2006, I believe. So, so that happened. The third movie came and went, and that was kind of a strange time, I think, for the franchise, because they're like, well, that ended on a low note. What do we do next? And they started talking about doing a Wolverine solo movie. And so that was what came out in 2009, the first Wolverine movie, which, interesting note there, I believe the first X-Men solo Wolverine movie was called X-Men Origins, Wolverine. And I believe that is due to the fact that they had intended on doing a series of X-Men movies with different characters in each one. So obviously that didn't work out. It was just a one shot. And it didn't do the greatest either. I think it was a step up from the X3 movie, but at the same time, it wasn't the greatest. And so, but that was what gave us Deadpool and Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. And that's, started a whole thing with Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, and Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds have a whole shtick now on social media. And so, yeah. And, in the Deadpool movies, he references that regularly. So, yeah. So then there was a kind of a lull there for a while, and then they said, hey, what do we do now? It's 2009. Wolverine was good, but it didn't do that well. So that was when they started working on First Class. Do you guys have any thoughts on First Class?
Well, I don't know. I feel like the X-Men movies are so inconsistent with the timeline, with people's ages. Nothing makes sense.
It's true. It's totally true.
When I look at First Class by itself, I liked it well enough, but then again, I'm not the biggest X-Men guy, so I don't care, but I liked it well enough.
Yeah, I agree. Overall, I realized that there were, I think that they were struggling with whether or not they wanted First Class to represent a prequel or a reboot or a soft reboot or something. X-Men was having, for lack of a better description, an identity crisis, because X3 was awful. Logan wasn't as bad, but still not the greatest. And so they were like having a bad string of movies. And then First Class came out, and they had established a lot of the backstory in the first two X-Men movies, and even in the third one. But I think that with First Class, they were trying to figure out whether or not they wanted to be boxed in with what was already established, or if they wanted to just try to just do their own thing, and hopefully people are okay with the inconsistencies. I don't know what the thinking was behind that, because even Bryan Singer, who did the first two amazing X-Men movies, he was, I don't know if he directed First Class, or if he was just involved somehow, or if he was producer. I don't exactly remember who directed First Class, but I'd be surprised if Bryan Singer was in the director's chair and still let all that stuff of the inconsistencies and things like that slip through the cracks.
Yeah, I looked at First Class as kind of like their attempt at a reboot in a way. And then they did their best to try and tie the old stuff with the new stuff, and I don't know, it was kind of neat that they went back to like the 60s. I mean, isn't that when X-Men comics started, in the late 60s?
Right. And by the way, director of X-Men First Class was Matthew Vaughn. So I don't know if Bryan Singer was involved in any way on that. Okay, Bryan Singer was screenplay. I'm looking at the stuff now. But yeah, they went back to the 60s. They did a lot of like the Hellfire Club, and they did a lot of the Charles Xavier meets Eric Lensher, and
it had a good cast, but for me, it would really be if I had my way, I would eliminate all of the X-Men movies with the exception of 1, 2, and Logan, the third Wolverine movie. If those were the only three, it would be a pretty good trilogy. That third one was an abomination. I could go on and on about all the stuff I didn't like about it and how stupid it was.
Really bad. It was so bad, man. It really was. But as far as First Class goes, I really thought that the way they handled Magneto as a character was amazing. Like, they had the whole scene with him in that bar where he was causing trouble and throwing knives across the room, and it was so cool. It was epic. I loved it.
I didn't really care too much for it. I didn't hate it. Like, it was okay. I thought Kevin Bacon did a good job. I don't know. There are just parts about it that aren't too great. Oh, I love that actress too. Rose. What's her name? The one that played Charles, Professor X.
Rose Byrne.
Yeah. I like her a lot. I think she's a good actress.
She is.
But one of the problems the X-Men movies has for me is, especially after that second one, they just kind of started throwing characters at the wall, and without explaining really who they were or what they could do, they just start doing things, and you don't even really know what they're doing. Like, beams are shooting everywhere, things are flying across the screen. Like,
yes, that's funny. I get that. I think you're supposed to just kind of go with it.
Some of the characters that they chose were confusing. The Zazel character being so close to Nightcrawler, I guess maybe it's supposed to be like his father, but like, you already have a character that's so close to that, and he's almost exactly the same thing except for red. And then they had that other character, Angel, in there, which is confusing because we already had an Angel who had like angel wings, but now there's this girl that looks like a fairy, and we're calling her Angel. Like, it's just weird, the ones that they decided to go with.
Yeah, I agree.
Havoc was okay, I guess, but it was really weird seeing him shoot the lasers out of his chest. Like, that didn't make any sense, really.
Right.
And then I didn't really care for the Darwin character too much, and it's really funny that they just killed him off, because I ended up looking him up later, and his special ability is he's supposed to be... He automatically... His power is kind of stupid, really. He automatically adapts to any situation around him, so his powers are constantly changing. It's just whatever he needs at the time he can do.
Wow, talk about plot device.
How did he die in there? Like, they made him eat a bomb or something? I can't remember.
I forgot about that. Yeah, there was some kind of... Yeah, there was... I think it was a... there was something about an explosion that he ended up ingesting, I think. It's been years since I've
So why would that work, but like nothing else? He could stick his head in the fish tank and grow gills. Why couldn't he grow like an iron stomach? But like, there's a funny part, like in the comic books, there's a funny point with Darwin where Hulk had come back and he was mad at everybody. It was part of, I believe, the World War Hulk storyline, and he's just crushing everyone, and Darwin went to go fight him, but Darwin doesn't control his powers. His powers just manifest in the way which would help him out the most in whatever situation he's in. So his powers decided that the best way to fight the Hulk was to not fight the Hulk at all, and he was teleported like to another state.
Right. Okay.
But like, I don't know. I don't really care for that character. I don't like a lot of like the new things, and I mean that might just me being old, and I like the things when I was a kid or things I'm familiar with. But a lot of the new ones just seem kind of dumb. The new characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I get that. And
I think the first two movies were really good, but like going forward, and I've always thought this. There's different versions of comic books. Like I talked about the Uncanny X-Men, or I briefly mentioned them earlier. Like there's different universes where things are different. There's the Ultimate Universe, all sorts of different things.
It's a multiverse.
Where you kind of get the same characters, but maybe there's slight differences between each one. And you can kind of look at the movies and the cartoons in that same vein too. Like, it's just another universe now. This is the cartoon universe.
Yeah, yeah.
They might end up doing something like that in the future with Spider-Man, where
they
already had the Spider-Man or Spider-Verse movie, but like in the next one, or in the next one, they might involve like the cartoon version of Spider-Man from the 90s, or even like
that'd be epic.
I'm hoping that maybe we'll see like a Tobey Maguire Spider-Man in the next Doctor Strange movie, but that's another conversation.
It's the same director, man. It might happen.
So, but I think if they tried to stick as close to like the 90s cartoon, the best that they could, like, you don't have to copy it, but kind of like aim for that feel, because a lot of the audience that's going to see these movies is us. It's our generation. We're taking our kids. We're the ones that are paying the money to see this stuff.
Exactly.
So try and keep it like that. And one of the other big problems that Fox had is they wanted to change the way characters worked and storylines. Like,
that's true.
They don't understand the source material enough or the fans enough to like give us what's right or what we want. They just look at it and like, oh, it'd be cool if we did this. I found some obscure thing over here where we could do something like this. And I guess like technically it could be comic book accurate, but it's a dumb thing from the comic book. Like the Apocalypse movie was horrible.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, but I've got a lot to say about Apocalypse, but we're not there yet. So.
Okay. You probably want to move on to Days of Future Past.
Well, no, first, after First Class comes Wolverine Part 2, The Wolverine 2013. So I have a lot of thoughts about this movie. I thought that it was actually way, 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 way good. Like really good. And at this point, when the Wolverine movie came out, I think First Class came out in 2011, something like that. And the Wolverine Part 2 movie, I think it's just called The Wolverine, came out in 2013. So there was kind of a little pause there. At this point, it would just the first Avengers movie was just out, and the Marvel movies were doing their thing, and I think they kind of saw maybe a bit of a format that they could follow. And so the Wolverine movie was kind of a way to say, hey, because at this point, X-Men fans were like, what is happening? We just got off this roller coaster of movies from the first 3 X-Men movies, and then a prequel with the Logan movie, with the Wolverine movie, and then another prequel with First Class. And are we just going to have prequels? Are we ever going to see what's happening beyond X3? What's happening? So the X-Men, the Wolverine movie came out 2013, and it was like, yes, we finally get to know a little bit of what's been happening since X3 ended. And you see Wolverine's, living in like the woods with his hair and stuff all overgrown. And I mean, what's the one character who came and like kind of said, hey, we need you to come overseas to Tokyo, and we want you to do some stuff. I don't remember the plot, but again, it's been years since I've seen it, but I think the most recent time I watched it was still, it was still really good, and like just a fresh, it was the excitement about the second Wolverine movie was exciting to me. And obviously they used that post-credits scene to set up Days of Future Past. But the Wolverine movie by itself also did kind of wrap up some loose ends. Like, he was still really distraught about the fact that he had to kill Jean Grey at the end of X3, which, it's understandable. I thought that was, as a plot device, one of the more redeeming qualities about X3 was the fact that,
was that he killed her?
Was the fact that Jean Grey was someone he was, infatuated with heavily, and he ended up having to kill her to save everyone. And of course, that would then, having done that, it would haunt him, and it totally makes sense. So that was a great way to develop that character, I thought. And so he's like living as a recluse in the woods, and
it just seems like an easy plot line to me, though. Like, yeah, it's okay. Like, oh, he has to kill the person he loves because, she's not herself anymore. And if he doesn't, everybody else is going to die.
Yeah.
It creates, conflict and
yeah,
all that, but it just seems so easy too.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, as far as all the other bad things about X3, I'll take it. I thought, it was one of the better things about X3. But anyway, so in the Wolverine, he, kind of basically comes back to his normal self in some way, and he kind of makes peace with it. And you see when he's fighting the Silver Samurai, and he
wasn't that like a robot?
Yeah, it was like an Iron Man style villain.
And this was after Iron Man came out, right? What year was this?
2013. So
yeah.
The first Avengers movie was 12, so they had already been well established in our world of movies. But the Silver Samurai almost kills Wolverine, and he's laying there, and he's lifeless, and he got his claws chopped off. The Silver Samurai chopped his claws off, but that was just temporary, because his actual claws kind of healed and grew back eventually a few minutes later. But while he was unconscious lying there on the floor, he had that vision of Jean Grey, and he was like, I'm so sorry, Jean, you were hurting people, that kind of thing. He kind of made peace with it and with himself, and it kind of put a nice little bow on it and wrapped it up. I thought it was done quite nicely. And then
I hardly remember that movie at all. I think the most memorable thing about it is how unmemorable it was for me. I remember I think I liked it better than the first one, but I remember the first one better, probably because of how stupid it was.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Like
I would highly recommend going and watching the Wolverine again. It's 2013. It is really good, I thought. Like, especially with they do reference the other X-Men movies to some degree, and even Famke Janssen comes back and reprises her role as Jean Grey in it. And so, it works out. And then, of course, the post-credits scene in the airport, like I said earlier, that, I will tell you, I was completely caught off guard by that. I did not know that was going to happen. I did not expect it. You see Wolverine getting ready to board an airplane in an airport to go back home or whatever. And at this point, we know Professor X is dead and Magneto is powerless from X3. But suddenly, bam, everyone in the room stops moving and everything. Oh, yeah. And so you see Magneto suddenly behind him, and he says, "I'll wait." And then it's that classic Ian McKellen voice, and Wolverine goes to turn around and go, tries to get him, and Magneto stops him with his magnet powers, and and then he's like, "What do you want with me?" And then you see Professor X slowly just roll around the corner, and everyone in the airport is still, like he, that trick he did in X2, where everyone, and in the first movie when everyone just kind of stopped. And,
how does Magneto stop him if he doesn't have metal claws?
Well, Logan's entire skeleton is covered in adamantium.
Yeah, but not his claws at that point, because the Silver Samurai cut them off.
Well,
his bone claws came back.
His bone claws are back. Yeah,
so he should still have been able to pull his bone claws out, even if Magneto was able to hold him there with the rest of the metal on his body.
Well, I think he was I don't remember for sure, but like Wolverine, just his whole body froze, and he couldn't even like move his arms or anything.
Yeah, I understand he wouldn't be able to move his arms because the metal on his arms is still there, but his actual claws, he should have been able to force them out because they're just bone at that point.
I don't remember this. Like, how are his claws bone again by the end of the movie?
Because the Silver Samurai literally cut off his adamantium claws.
It's true, yeah. So
how does that happen? Because nothing can break adamantium.
Because the Silver Samurai's also made of adamantium or something like that.
And why didn't his sword or whatever break when he tried to cut off the claws? They should have broke each other, or nothing at all should have happened.
Well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you think in theory it shouldn't be able to even break itself, but
Well, no,
It
so
didn't.
the Silver Samurai's blade, I believe, was somehow energized or supercharged or superheated or something, because when you see the blade slice off Wolverine's claws, I think it was glowing maybe. So it looked like it might have had some kind of advantage, but
But
anyway,
again, I'm saying he still should have been able to pull out his bone claws before he got stopped.
so he did. In the post-credits scene, you see he's got his arm stuck up in place and he can't move his arm, but you see his bone claws are out.
Okay, I'd have to rewatch it then.
Yeah. And then that's
Which,
where Wolverine...
how did he get his bone claws back for Logan?
Well, wait, what?
The next, whatever the last movie's called, the...
Oh, so how did he get his adamantium claws back?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, so I remember reading somewhere that they didn't address it, but since the immediate follow-up to the Wolverine was X-Men Days of Future Past, and that at that point it had been years between the two, and that the whole time Logan, Professor X, Storm, and Magneto, they're all kind of working together on the same team against the Sentinels and all that. Magneto basically helped somehow. I think I remember like reading somewhere that Magneto used his powers to recoat the bone claws in adamantium or something to that effect, and essentially giving back his metal claws. So I read that somewhere as a side note, but they never addressed it. But yeah,
I don't know. To me, you shouldn't have to read comic books and novels and all this other stuff
I agree,
to be up to pace. You know,
they should have established that in
they could have had a throwaway line that
Yeah.
establishes why he has them back, but
it wasn't even a
that's the
book or
problem.
a
These
novel.
movies don't make sense.
That's
Yeah.
where like the Marvel Cinematic Universe has an advantage, because there's a couple of lemons in there, but for the most part there's like one guy in charge, so everything has like a consistency to it.
Yeah.
Where this is probably a different team worked on the Wolverine movies than worked on the X-Men movies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah.
So, like, they may not have been in contact with each other. Maybe they got a note saying, okay, we need this to happen in the movie, and then they never, like, things fall through the cracks.
Yeah. I get that, yeah. So, but what the note about whoever said that Magneto would have been the one to somehow or another get Wolverine's claws metal coated again, it was just like, I think it might have even just been a tweet or something from someone from the production. No, it was someone involved in the movies.
That's how he got his claws back. The fans demanded it.
Yes. Yeah, that would also be acceptable, I guess. Maybe. But so, then the Wolverine led to Days of Future Past, which, in my opinion, is my favorite X-Men movie. But, it's got the first class cast. It's got the original cast. It's got time travel. I'm a sucker for time travel movies. I love time travel. And so I just thought it was great. And I even remember the animated series back then did a Days of Future Past. I don't know if it was a 2-parter or something like that, but it was at least 2 parts, if not 3. And it was just, it sucked me in. I remember between the episodes, I was just like, for that whole week from Saturday morning to Saturday morning, I was like, what is going to happen? So, and it's obviously based on the Days of Future Past storyline from way back when. And I thought they did a pretty good job of, kind of addressing and fixing some of the cinematic inconsistencies between the movies, because there were a lot of things about the movies that didn't add up, didn't make sense. So Days of Future Past came along and didn't fix everything, didn't address everything, but did a good job, I thought, with some of that stuff. And then obviously at the end of Days of Future Past, you get a original X-Men cast reunion in the X-Mansion when Wolverine wakes up and he's back in the future again. and everything has been fixed. There's no more Sentinel War. There's no more dark times like the Terminator movies and it's all gone. And as a Cyclops fan, I'll admit I got a little teary-eyed when suddenly Cyclops showed up right there, because a lot of Cyclops fans were hoping that would happen. But prior to the movie's release, Bryan Singer tweeted out, he said something to the effect of, "Yeah, we're bringing back some of the cast that have been killed off. We're gonna have some of these people come back, but it looks like we're gonna have no way possible to bring back Cyclops. We tried, but unfortunately, Cyclops and Jean Grey are still dead, and we can't bring them back." So we, as fans, were like, "Dang!" But then, bam, we were surprised, and they showed up at the end of the movie.
Wouldn't it be better just to not say anything?
What's that?
Why would you even say that? Like, why not just leave it for a surprise? So people can like wonder and hope. If that's what you're looking for. Like, an example, if I never knew that the Hulk was in the third Thor movie, and I was sitting in the theater and he popped out of nowhere, that would have been like a huge moment for me. I would have been like, whoa, no way, and been really excited. But because he was all over the advertising, I didn't care as much. Like, I thought it was cool he was in it, and it was interesting, but had I not known at all, it would have been insane.
Well, I think obviously it was Bryan Singer just trying to throw us off the scent, because
I just don't like that little game thing. I'm sorry, people.
I know,
and it sounds very winky the way you described it too. So it sounds
well, because everyone really wanted Cyclops and Jean Grey to come back, and no one kind of expected them not to. Like, everyone expected them to come back. So when Bryan Singer made that statement about, yeah, we got Storm back, we got Beast back, we got Rogue is coming back, we got Magneto in this movie, but unfortunately we can't get Cyclops or Jean Grey.
And they were in the movie for like 2 minutes. And
even though they were only there for 2 minutes, I thought it was beautiful, because I felt so unfairly treated as a diehard Cyclops fan. And so this was 2014 when Days of Future Past came out, 11 years after X2, and after Jean Grey was killed in X2, and then Cyclops was killed in X3. I felt so mistreated as a fan, but here we are in this movie, and they're back, and it just felt so good, and it was like, okay,
I didn't really like it.
We can put it to bed now.
I didn't really like that movie that much.
What, Days of Future Past, like as a whole?
Yeah, I didn't really like it that much. There were parts that were kind of neat, but like their version of Quicksilver was an entertaining scene.
Yeah. One thing I thought was exciting is they did bring back the theme song, the score, like the theme from the first handful of X-Men, or I don't know if it was in the first X-Men movie, but it was definitely featured prominently in the second one. It was kind of like, for lack of a better description, an X-Men main theme, and then it had gone away for years and years with the other movies, and then it came back for DOFP, so for DOF.
It's been a while since I've seen it, because I only saw it while it was in the theater the one time.
Yeah,
so
it goes da 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 da.
No, I can picture that. I'm just trying to think of the things I didn't like, because I remember I didn't like it. I didn't like that because Mystique is Jennifer Lawrence now, that she's that she's taking the spotlight like the new Wolverine, and Mystique to me has always been like just under a head honcho bad guy.
Yeah, and Mystique, even though she did a good job with the role, what's the actress that replaced her? What's her name again?
Rebecca Romijn was the first one. Jennifer Lawrence was the second one.
Jennifer Lawrence, yeah. Jennifer Lawrence, I didn't think she was the best casting choice for that role.
Well, she was in the Teeny Bopper book movie, which made her popular. It's not that she's a great actress or anything. She just made a lot of money for Hunger Games.
Right. That's probably all that really mattered at the time. So,
but I didn't like that. I didn't like the Future Sentinels. I thought they were kind of stupid. The plot line was interesting, but it didn't do a lot for me. And then Apocalypse, I really hated that one.
Yeah, Josh, what did you think of Days of Future Past?
I only saw it once and I didn't like it.
Oh boy.
Do you remember why?
I don't remember very much about it.
Yeah, I'm having trouble remembering too much about it either.
One of the things I didn't like was I actually liked First Class, and I thought it was a slap in the face to them to immediately say, okay, now let's use, that the First Class movie did pretty all right. Let's, bring back the original movies. To me, they had their shot.
Yeah.
They were done. I wanted to see the First Class people continue, not immediately have their next movie. It'd be like if...
Well, the movie was all the First Class people for most of the time. I don't even think they were trying to set up for another...
Still, it'd be like, okay, what if, you had Star Trek First Contact, one movie with the next gen crew, and then immediately following, the next movie has the original cast crew back with, it's like, let them have their time to do something.
Yeah, and I see that point. I would kind of be interested to know what caused them to not just proceed with an original with a First Class only sequel immediately after First Class. I don't know why. The only thing I can possibly theorize is the original cast did still have some loose ends to tie up, and they were aging out of the franchise probably, and they're like, if we're gonna do this, it's now or never. So let's do this now. We'll get back to the First Class cast in the one after Days of Future Past, which is what they did with Apocalypse. We see the Apocalypse movie really just focused on the First Class cast with some new additions, some young versions of the original cast, young versions of Cyclops, young versions of Jean Grey and Storm and all those guys. So we see that, and I didn't like it. It was kind of, I don't know. It was forgettable plot. I only saw it maybe once or twice years ago, and I was just kind of like, man, I just wasn't on the edge of my seat. And Apocalypse himself kind of looked like a Power Rangers villain, and he was just, I really had a hard time accepting what they did with that. So what are your thoughts on Apocalypse?
You go first, Josh.
I actually didn't see the whole thing.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah, because I think around the time after Days of Future Past came out, I think that's when our generation of X-Men fans started to fall off the wagon, because it was just they started to lose, I think, their sense of direction a little bit, and they even roasted their own selves. I don't know if you caught on this, but this is technically this is
the Star Wars thing.
Well, no, yeah, they were talking about the third movie in any trilogy of movies, and how this is technically the third movie with the First Class people in it, and they even said something to the effect of, it's common knowledge, everyone knows the third movie is the worst, and that was a roast of not only the fact that X3 was awful compared to the first two.
I think that was their intent, was to make fun of, like, oh, we admit it, X3 was horrible, but haha, here's a better third. But no, they were too stupid to realize that they were talking about themselves in that one.
Yeah. So it's like double whammy there.
The character of Apocalypse was terrible. He sucked. They didn't do really any character development with him. I didn't understand in the movie. There was no reason to think that he was going to be like some guy that would be able to get people to follow him. They didn't really do a lot to explain who he was or what he was all about. They kind of did, but they just kind of rushed it. The special effects weren't that great. I thought the whole thing with Magneto was stupid. When the movie starts, he's a wanted man, so they're coming after him. They turn him in because, they need to get him back in jail. And by the end of the movie, he joined teams with Apocalypse and almost by himself single-handedly destroyed the entire world, which should make everybody's fears about him validated and want to
Yeah.
hunt him down and get rid of him even more so, but he was being heralded as a hero. And that doesn't make any sense to me at all.
No.
He probably killed millions of people while he was messing with the Earth's magnetic field.
Yeah. And so overall, the movie feels a little bit kind of rushed. And, they did kind of plug in a little bit of an Easter egg foreshadowing moment to the Logan movie. I don't know if it was a post-credit scene. Yeah, it was a post-credit scene because Hugh Jackman. This was his last appearance in an X-Men movie where they were at that facility and he was Weapon X. It's kind of like the same story again with him getting his claws and all that and his skeleton, but as a slightly different version because now the timeline has been altered as a result of the previous movie. So the way things go down with Hugh Jackman's character is going to be slightly different. So, and what was cool about it is they did it slightly more accurate to the comic books, where he's got the headgear on and he's inside that chamber and he busts out and then he sees the X-Men there real quick and he runs off. And I think it was Cyclops or maybe Jean, one of them two said, I really hope we don't have to see him again. It's kind of a funny moment there. And so, but at the end of Apocalypse, there was someone who came back to that facility to get DNA sample or a blood sample or something. And that was how we got the little girl in the Logan movie, in the third Wolverine movie. I think she was technically considered, X-23 was her character's name, because I don't know why she's called that, because Wolverine is Weapon X. And so she
was number 10. That's why he's X.
Yeah. So she
There's a number of weapons.
X-23.
Like, it's a program in the comics where they're trying to, mess with people's genetics and stuff and make super soldiers.
Okay.
And Logan was number 10. That's why they called him X.
Yeah, but so then she's called X-23, though, and she's only got 2 claws that come out instead of 3. I don't know.
23rd test subject.
Okay. So she's more or less, from what I understand, a clone of Wolverine? Like a female clone, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And so they have that going on as a way to set up the Logan movie, which happened right after Apocalypse. But at that point, I saw Wolverine, and man, it was just like, okay, they did a good job with it. They got Professor Xavier in it, Patrick Stewart playing the character one last time, and it was satisfying for me because it goes back then to that conversation I had with my brothers about who would be the greatest actor to ever play a live-action Professor X. That'd be Patrick Stewart. And so here we are in 2017, and I'm going to the theater one last time to see Patrick Stewart play this character. And I thought, yeah, they did a good job, but it was such a dark and depressing, sad, somber movie, which it's supposed to be. They did it for what it's supposed to be. They did a good job. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I think it was executed perfectly for what.
Pun intended?
What's that?
Pun intended? Executed?
Yeah, executed. Yes, there we go. So, but I saw it in the theater once. I stood up and I applauded at the end, along with everyone else. But I never want to see it again. I never saw it again. And here we are 3 years later. I never want to see it again. It's so dark, and it is rated R. So there's, it's a rougher, it's got more, swearing and questionable content throughout. And, it's not as enjoyable to me, but it was done well. It's just not as enjoyable to me. And so that was
Josh,
where
you didn't like it either, right, Josh? Or, well, you said you liked it, but not that much.
I did not like it at all.
Okay. Why?
Can you elaborate on that?
It was dark and depressing. It's not a franchise I care about anyway.
Okay.
I don't think rated R necessarily makes a movie better. I know a lot of people feel like you immediately bump something up to rated R and that makes it a masterpiece. I didn't think that was what it necessarily needed to be good. It just didn't work for me.
Right. So I see why a lot of people would say that, and I see why you're saying that, because you're not the first person I've heard say that. The cool thing I thought about Logan was, we finally got to see Logan use his claws to their fullest extent, like you would expect Logan to use his claws on people. And of course, it's bloody, it's gory, and it's not something you ever probably wanted to see growing up for our generation. But it's like, I don't know about you guys, but in the back of my mind, I always thought, man, if Logan was real and he was trying to defend, some guy who was under attack by a bad guy, and here comes Wolverine charging at him, you would expect Logan's claws to be going through, like, their jaw and their neck and their heart. And, you got a little bit of that in the first few movies, but it was just like, man, this is like vicious. This is like the to the furthest, the fullest extent of one that you would expect someone who has arm claws to come out their fist to use them. This is what you would expect, and they did it. I'm glad they did it at least that one time, and I'm also glad that it's never going to be done again, because I think honestly at this point the X-Men franchise needs a break. But that's another discussion.
I loved Logan. I thought it might have been the best out of all the movies, really. Yeah, it was darker, but the tone of it kind of felt like a Western. Like he was an old gunslinger that wanted to hang up his boots, but now he's been burdened with, he has got to take care of the professor, and now he has this little kid to take care of. He doesn't necessarily want to.
That is a great analogy. That is perfect. I completely agree. A Western. That's what it is. That's awesome.
I thought it was a great ending for basically that character. The future was more realistic. It wasn't as crazy as it was in Days of Future Past. It was really the only thing that you saw that was futuristic was like self-driving cars, and that's kind of a thing now. So
my only question about Logan was, I really wish that they would have done like a Logan prequel comic, like leading up to the events of Logan from what we saw at the end of Days of Future Past. Because Days of Future Past ended with everyone's alive again, hanging out in the X Mansion, hanging out, teaching classes, everyone's doing their thing, but then you get to Logan and they talk about what happened, but I wish they would have just, at least, since they're not going to show, that stuff, at least they could have released a graphic novel, a prequel graphic novel or a prequel comic, just kind of talking about, like, in more detail what would have led to the events that happened, which
it was based on a graphic novel. There's one called Old Man Logan, and it's loosely based on it because they didn't have the rights to all the characters in the graphic novel, but if you wanted to check that out, that's what it is.
No, yeah, and I've read Old Man Logan. I'm talking about a movie centric prequel comic that would have led to describing what happened between Days of Future Past and Logan, because I read Old Man Logan, the comic book. I thought it was really good, but it's not exactly the same. So I would have just been like, hey, what would have led to all the X-Men people dying and seemingly an end to what seemed to be such a happy ending, with everyone back to life and hanging out together like good old times again. So that's just me. But a graphic novel, or as far as the Old Man Logan comic book, it's such a good side note. I really enjoyed it. Like the fact that it ended with, spoiler alert, it ended with the Hulk swallowing Wolverine, and then Wolverine slicing his way out, essentially killing the Hulk from the inside out. It's pretty funny to think about. So
I enjoyed the smaller nature of the story for Logan. It wasn't like a blue beam shooting off into the sky, the world's going to end type of thing. It was just a little contained story, which I think a lot of these superheroes movies needs to go back.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. It was more character driven, albeit very intense character development, but still it was more focused on character development, and it was smaller scale, and it was just like a handful of characters, and so, but it did a good job, I thought. And so this leads us to finally the newest X-Men movie, which I will admit to you right now, I have not seen the Phoenix movie. What is it called again? The
Joaquin.
The Joaquin Phoenix movie. No, is it just called X-Men Phoenix or Rise of the Phoenix or something like that? And it's the first class cast. Again,
Dark Phoenix,
which is a follow-up to Apocalypse, but Dark Phoenix. There we are. So I haven't seen it. I just, at this point, after
you're not the only one, because it didn't do all that great in the theaters, and probably Apocalypse is the reason why.
Yeah, so I was so underwhelmed with Apocalypse. I was like, man, I am not interested at all in this franchise anymore. Other than Logan, I was interested in at least seeing that movie once, which I did. I saw it once, and I'm not even interested in seeing that again. But Apocalypse was so forgettable, and I was just like, man, this just feels like more like a chore at this point to try to watch these X-Men movies, because they just lost me. I fell off the wagon, and they lost me. So I don't know. I've heard it's not the greatest. I saw some pictures and I saw some clips and I saw the trailers, and it just didn't pull me in enough to want to go see it. And I think it might be on Disney Plus soon. I know recently Disney Plus has been acquiring X-Men content. They've got the animated series. They've got other animated series.
Well, they own everything that Fox had now.
But recently they just added, as of today, as of our recording this on August 15th, they have I think 3 X-Men movies, if not either 2 or 3, but it's not all of them. They're slowly kind of getting there. So, but they have Days of Future Past, and they have the first X-Men. Those might be the only 2 they have at this point. But
they have all of them. But you mean just on the service, right?
On the service of Disney Plus, yeah, for watching right now, as of now. I think they only have those 2. And they seem to be doing it out of order. So, and they also have Apocalypse. So they have those 3. They have Apocalypse, Days of Future Past, and then the first X-Men movie. So,
is it weird to think that Married with Children is a Disney show?
What did you say?
Is it weird to think that now Married with Children is a Disney show?
Didn't think about that one, but that is a strange thought. Kind of like how what's his face from Rocky Horror Picture Show is now considered a Disney princess or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't see Dark Phoenix either. I didn't really care to. I heard that it was better than Apocalypse, but not by much, and it didn't matter anyway because nobody should care.
Right. So, yeah, we've got the fact that the franchise is now officially dead, and I saw Apocalypse, and I was so disappointed. And when I heard that they were doing a follow-up, I thought the Apocalypse movie was going to be it, because it was the 3rd one. And when I heard they were doing a 4th movie with these people in the 90s, and it's supposed to take place less than 10 years before the first movie, and it's just more inconsistencies, and I don't know. I saw that their X-Men, their X suits that they wear, they look really not. First of all, they look nothing like what they ended with in the end of Apocalypse. I don't know what that's all about. Their little suits that they all wore, that they kind of look like movie versions of the animated series suits at the end of Apocalypse. But then you get to Dark Phoenix, and their suits all look like pajamas with yellow X's on their chest, and that's it. So, and I think I even read somewhere that, like I said, I haven't seen the movie, but I think I read somewhere that the actress who plays Mystique is not wearing blue makeup at all in this movie. It's all like CG'd on her. So
Jennifer Lawrence can't be bothered.
Jennifer Lawrence has CG blue face on, and from what I could see, it just doesn't look the same. It doesn't look real. It looks like she's basically on a Snapchat filter.
It's as bad as CGing on a mustache for the whole movie, or out a mustache.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do that. Let's see how that'll kill a franchise.
Well,
anyway,
that's not really the last X-Men movie, though. And what about Deadpool movies? There's two of them.
Yeah, there's two the Deadpool movies I was gonna briefly mention. I saw the first Deadpool movie in the theater. I didn't really know what to expect. Classic Deadpool comics constantly break the fourth wall, and that was not a disappointment at all because he does that throughout the movie. And I'm assuming in the second movie he does the same thing. I haven't seen the second Deadpool movie, but I've heard it's about as good as the first one. But I mean, it is what it is. Deadpool. They brought back Ryan Reynolds, and they do a lot of references to his first appearance in the first Logan solo movie, and it's just I don't know. It is what it is. I'm not really into it, but I guess I have no complaints. I'm just not. It's not my cup of tea.
I enjoyed both of them.
I wasn't into it enough to even see the second one.
I like both of them. I think it's kind of neat that the way that character is set up and the way that they can do it, that they can basically just parody all of the other superhero movies, and it's fine.
That's a good way to describe it.
It doesn't even matter what studio it came from; he can still do it.
Like the Green Lantern references, and
it's a little bit crazy parts of it. What I think is funny is even though it's like really wacky and out there and adult, they still do certain things better than the other X-Men movies did. Like as far like if you didn't know, Juggernaut's in the second movie, and although he's not a perfect Juggernaut, he's a million times better than that one we got in that stupid third movie.
Oh my gosh, that movie!
And
I'm the Juggernaut.
I didn't hate Colossus in the second movie or Days of Future Past, but I didn't like him either. And Colossus just feels so much better in these Deadpool movies. So
yeah, that's a good point. I remember Juggernaut. I mean, I remember Colossus in the first Deadpool movie, and I thought, man, that's really good.
That's how you expect him to be. So I enjoy him. I think they're actually going to keep doing Deadpool movies, but nobody knows exactly how yet.
Yeah, because at this point, what's the future of this franchise? Disney owns it now. But
right. They said they want to keep doing it and keep making it rated R, but nobody knows exactly how that's going to work yet. So we'll find out probably in a couple of years. There's one more X-Men movie that nobody's seen, even though it's been done for like 4 years now.
Oh, it's New Mutants, or...
Yeah, and that one's good. To me, it looks like a One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest type of movie, where they're locked up, and maybe there's an aspect to it where nothing's what it seems as well. So, like if you took the Matrix and mixed it with Cuckoo's Nest, that's kind of what you got.
Kind of sounds like it might be another reboot-ish type of move.
Kinda. It's called The New Mutants. It has a bunch of other characters that we haven't seen yet. The blonde, is Colossus's sister, actually.
Okay.
Her comic book character is named Magic. She does magic stuff, kind of like Doctor Strange.
He does strange stuff.
Yeah, it's very weird. Dr. Weird. And I actually like that actor. I like a few of the actors that are in the movie, and the movie kind of looks interesting, although I'm not really expecting much out of it. And nobody knows exactly how that's going to fit in either. Is it just going to be like its own story? Or are they...
I don't know, man. I don't know. At this point, I fell off the wagon.
I guess Kevin Feige said he liked it and don't touch it, just leave it the way it is. I think it's going to have probably nothing to do with anything that they do in the future. Have you heard about any of their X-Men plans for the future?
I have not. I mean, Disney owns it now, and I mean, at this point, it's just pure speculation, but I know there are probably some talks about trying to introduce X-Men characters into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and
from what I've heard, they're going to start popping up all over the place now. There's rumors that perhaps Gambit and Rogue will be in the next Captain Marvel.
Okay.
Doctor Strange may have a way to kind of introduce mutants in a larger scale to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Okay.
I heard something about Wolverine being tied into Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Okay.
Show that they're going to be doing on Disney Plus. And then I've heard that their plan for the X-Men as a team, like the first X-Men movie, is actually, it sounds really cool. I try to keep my expectations low these days.
Expectations.
Exactly. No pun intended. That you remember there was that hidden place in Antarctica where like suddenly it's jungle and there's prehistoric animals and stuff there.
Yeah, what it was called? Oh dang, what was it called?
The like Lost Lands or something like that. The Hidden Lands.
Yeah.
Anyway, it would focus
Savage Land.
Savage Lands, that's it. So it would focus on the X-Men going there, or maybe they've been hiding out there, and the bad guy of the film would actually be the pterodactyl dude, Sauron.
I had that action figure, man. That's a green pterodactyl dude action figure.
And that would lead up to, they said the first big bad for the X-Men will end up being like Mr. Sinister, perhaps, which would be really cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, okay. We may see. I've also heard stuff about Omega Red popping up, maybe somewhere. There might be a reference to him in the Black Widow movie that nobody's seen yet.
Okay.
And then Storm has a relationship in the comic books with Black Panther, so she may show up there.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of places a lot of directions they could take with this. There was a really, in my opinion, really good graphic novel series from about, I don't know, it might have been about 10 years ago now, but it was called A versus X, Avengers versus X-Men. And
I think that might be like the ultimate goal in the end. Actually, I've heard
it was really good.
A lot of people have talked about Secret Wars, which is a thing where the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, and the X-Men get transported to like a battle planet with a bunch of villains, including Galactus and Doctor Doom. Mm-hmm. And they, like, while the good guys are trying to fight off the bad guys, they're also kind of fighting each other because the X-Men are happy to help whenever they're needed, but nobody seems to want to help the X-Men ever, and they have to fight their own battles, and there's a lot of, like, distrust there, kind of like a Civil War type thing.
Yeah, and there's a lot of funny moments in the comic book version of the Avengers vs. X-Men story. There's a lot of funny moments where, like Captain America keeps really, and Spider-Man is in this series as well. And Captain America and Spider-Man and there was I think Cyclops. It was Cyclops. He was trying to figure out. There was a moment where he was trying to figure out what do we do about this one bad situation, and Captain America says, any thoughts, any ideas? And Spider-Man speaks up and says, I'm a level 10 on such and such video game. But he didn't say it was a video game. He just said the name of the video game. And Captain America says, what? What is that? And Cyclops like, it's just a video game. Never mind. Just ignore him. He's just a silly kid, you know. So there's a lot of funny moments where you get a lot of interaction between the characters. But and that was after they were done fighting each other, but still. So there's just a lot of exciting potential stories to be told now that Disney owns all this stuff. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm slightly burnt on the superhero stuff. I'm not sure I'm going to watch every movie now, but for sure I'm interested in how they do certain things. And how they do certain characters. It would be nice to get a good version of the Fantastic Four. It'd be nice.
They've tried twice now.
It'd be nice to get a better version of the X-Men. Like those first two movies are pretty cool, but I want to see like a more well done, comic accurate.
I agree. They did a good job for what we needed at the time 20 years ago, but more comic accurate, less black leather would be nice.
Yeah, Josh, we never asked you who's your favorite X-Mans.
I don't know if I really have one.
You're going to have to say one. Just pick one.
Nightcrawler.
There you go.
Nightcrawler is pretty sweet.
If you could, you'd like the ability to teleport and climb up walls and stuff?
And have a devilish arrow pointing tail.
Just the power.
Yes.
Or do you just like to only have 3 fingers and 3 toes on each hand and foot?
That's funny.
Nah, just the power.
I must see where I am going, or else I might end up inside the wall. Oh man, so yeah, so you're a Nightcrawler guy if you had to pick one, and I obviously am a Cyclops, Scott Summers, diehard fan to the end. Which, by the way, there's this whole movement in the comic book world called hashtag Cyclops was right. Look it up. Hashtag Cyclops was right. It's a reference to the fact that I think it was like there was a story where Cyclops said that Professor Xavier wasn't trustworthy because he had too much power or something, and he was trying to control the Phoenix, but he ended up actually killing Jean Grey in the comics, and a bunch of other people died as a result, and Cyclops was vindicated because he said, we can't trust Professor Xavier, and everyone was like, what are you talking about, man? It's Professor X. He's on our side, and a bunch of people ended up dying as a result. So there's a lot of stuff. I kind of fell off the wagon as far as the comic book stories, because over the last 10 or 15 years, the stories and the storylines in the X-Men world of comic books have gotten really complicated, like really, really complicated. And I can't even tell you what's. I know they've had like a couple of soft reboot-ish type of moments in the comic books, and there was some time travel stories where the original, like, they actually went back in time to the 60s versions of the X-Men characters and brought them forward in time into the current day of X-Men, and the old X-Men somehow or another teamed up with the new X-Men, and I don't know exactly how that worked out. It wasn't the same kind of thing they did with Days of Future Past. It was slightly different, but it was still time travel involved, and so there's just been a lot going on there. So if you're into that stuff, it's just check it out, but it's a lot of reading. You need a lot of time and nothing else to do if you really want to stay on top of everything that's happening. So that's, I guess, all I have to say about that with the X-Men stuff.
All right. Well, this was a Dave episode. You guys can thank Dave. Welcome back, Dave.
Yes, I'm happy to be back. I'm done with school. I'm set up with a new mic here in my little man cave, and I hope to be a little more involved now than I've been able to be involved over the last 3 years or so. So exciting! I'm excited to be a part of the Escape Pod crew again. So even if it isn't still,
very excited.
Yeah. What's that?
Very excited.
Yes, I'm excited.
Any thoughts, Josh?
Yes, Josh.
No.
No.
Well, thank you for being on our podcast,
right.
Josh.
What's that?
I said thank you for being on our podcast, Josh.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. Oh, yeah, the X-Men. Everybody loves them, kind of.
Yeah. So, if you excuse me, I'm going to go play some Sega Genesis X-Men games with my cardboard Cyclops visor taped to my face.
And I'm going to poop.
Sounds like a plan. Sounds like an excellent plan.
Hurry up, hit the end button, Josh.